Hello friends, it's Greg here again on the Blue Feather Ephemera channel. I have an eBay store by the same name where I sell vintage magazine print advertising. Today, I get to show you what is just about my favorite thing to do. I get to show you how I harvested cash from 15 great ads that sold during the recent week of August the 5th to August the 11th from my eBay store. Let's get started. I want to start with this advertisement here first because I'm letting the internet do some heavy lifting on the pronunciations that you see here. It says that the advertiser is Lederle, Lederle, and Google says that's pronounced Lederle, and that's Lederle Laboratories Streptokinase Fire Girl Treatment. And this is from a 1953 magazine. And when you zoom in and look at the details here, it's talking about this home accident where the little girl was burned. And apparently this laboratory makes some enzymes that helps with debriding burned flesh so that it can heal better. And so that's what this company, I don't know if it specializes in it or if it's just one of their products, but that's what's talked about here. I sold this for $16.77. One of the best things about having a YouTube channel is I get to learn from the viewers. And when I was talking about a similar ad to this one in a recent video, I learned from a viewer that I was using the wrong terminology when I talked about it. I called this a single color ad because there is only one single additional color of red, in this case, applied to the ad. But because the black is on the page as well, the viewer corrected me, said in the industry, this is called a two-color ad, and it makes perfect sense. And I just hadn't really thought about it before. But what you see on the page here is a 19-foot Aristocraft boat, and it's got a Mercruiser stern drive motor, and this is built in Atlanta, Georgia. This ad comes from 1972, and we'll take a closer look at the boat here and the art. This is just, I love the way this jumps off the page with that single additional color applied to the page to make this a two-color ad. I sold it for $16.77. Well, this is just not my day for pronunciations, and after I got some help with Paco Rabanne, then I get to the name of this perfume, and I'm just going to say it's called Calendar because I can't make my mouth say what Google said. And I always say I'm not French and you can't make me speak it, even though I had 2 years of it. It just don't work for me. But anyway, this is a cool ad here. However, I do have a return request on it. But since that return request came about 2 weeks ago, the buyer said they just didn't like it, but they've not actually started they've got the return approval, but they've not put it in the mail to me yet. So I'm still considering it sold for $14.77. This is a World War II era ad, 1943. The business is called S. Gumpert, and it's based in Ozone Park, New York. It says the company is the mass feeding headquarters, and it's an ad that's about food in general, so I put that in the listing title as well. In the picture, you can see the company's, I guess, home offices or a major plant, but down the left-hand side of the page, it talks about the various types of products that they sell for feeding people in institutional situations, whether it's military dining halls or hospitals or schools or anywhere else where you've got a lot of mouths to feed. They sell the product for that. I sold this for $18.77. In a recent video, I made specific mention of an advertisement that I sold from the World War II years where it showed sailors or soldiers embarking on a ship, and I believe that the advertisement didn't have anything to do with any forms of conveyance. I think it was actually ad for business machines, if I'm not mistaken. But from the World War II years, the reason why I pointed that out, it had the same kind of tone and feel as this ad right here. And it's talking about the goodbyes that were said to soldiers. And in this ad, it says Fred Harvey, railroad dining cars, restaurants, shops, hotels, and it shows a soldier here saying goodbye, or more accurately, he says, "I'll be seeing you." And it talks about the goodbyes of the World War II years and all of that. But, really, there was a lot of emotion and sentiment that were tied to those goodbyes, and advertisers certainly did leverage them. There's one more thing to say about this sale right here, and it went to a shopper down in Florida who, in the feedback, told me that she will be including this in a display of World War II era memorabilia that's coming up in a few months, and she was happy to get this and make it part of her living history display. I sold this for $14.77. This is a sweet advertisement right here from 1927, and the advertiser is Simonds of Fitchburg, Massachusetts. They made saws, files, knives, and steel cross-cut saws like you see in the image here. They make tempered steel for tough timber. And seeing this saw, I mean, you can often walk into a restaurant like a Cracker Barrel or, little hometown restaurants and other places where they just like to hang antiques up on the wall, and you'll often see cross-cut saws. So it's fun to see one in this picture right here. I sold this ad for $11.77, and it went out to the Pacific Northwest, where they cut a lot of timber with saws like this. Sometimes in the selling of print advertising like this, the nostalgia is not exclusive to the customer. And that's the case with this one right here. I felt a strong sense of nostalgia as I looked at this advertisement right here from Blenko. And this was a glass company that was based, I'm pretty sure it was in West Virginia, Milton, West Virginia. And you can see in the detail here some of these beautiful glass items made by Blenko. And I've told the story a few times about how I got my eBay start selling vintage glass and ceramics. And I've handled a lot of Blenko, and it really is beautiful. So I enjoyed seeing this. I sold it for $14.77. Here's an advertisement from the World War II years. This one from Life magazine, 1943, and the company is B.F. Goodrich, and it's talking about synthetic rubber tires on this Jeep. It shows some GIs here interacting with the local folks, and just from the outfit here on the lady, this looks like it may be somewhere in Europe, and that makes sense because a buyer in France purchased this through the eBay Global Shipping Program. And in the detail of the ad here, it just says that in the early days of automobile tires, the tires were about 50% synthetic rubber, and during World War II, tires were 99% synthetic rubber. It talks about an 80 million mile test there and all of that. Interesting ad here. In War or Peace, B.F. Goodrich, first in rubber. I sold it for $18.77. You might recall that on the channel recently we talked about a small boat called the Sport Yak that was made in Michigan. This is a small boat, which is a sailboat made in Waterbury, Connecticut, and they actually have two models, one called a Sailfish and one called a Sunfish, and these are just tiny, tiny sailboats here, like you can see in the ad. This is a small piece of paper here, measuring less than, right at 6 inches by 3 inches, and I sold this for $9.77. It's almost daily in this business that I run into this situation like this one right here, where you've got two major companies that are mentioned in the same advertisement. Now, obviously, this is an ad for White Motor Company of Cleveland, and they're advertising their delivery trucks. You've also got a company mentioned called Crowley's Dairy Foods of Binghamtown, New York. Now, the question is how to treat that. Whenever possible, I always try to cram both of those companies, especially the hometowns, into the listing title in case there's a person with an affiliation with either of those that would be interested in searching for this ad. Now, in this particular case, neither one of these applied because the ad ended up selling to Indiana. Now somebody in Indiana may also have an attachment other than just the visual appeal of this beautiful ad. They may have a grandparent, great grandparent that worked for one or other of the companies, but it's just not so obvious when it went to a different city. But it's a beautiful ad, and I sold it for $23.77. This ad here ran in 1952, and the advertiser is Fenwal Electric Temperature Control and Detection Company. It's a company based in Ashland, Massachusetts. This demonstrates something that I used to keep pretty close tabs on back during the first year that I was making these videos, to demonstrate the point that a lot of these great old ads go back to the town where the company or the advertiser was located. And this right here is one of those. This company made thermostats and thermometers and various kinds of temperature controls, fire, smoke detection, things like that, and really neat products there. I sold this for $16.77. This ad on the screen comes from 1936, and the advertiser is L.C. Smith and Corona. They're talking about the silent typewriter that you see in the picture here. And it says, "Silence gained and nothing lost" was the headline for this ad. And I think there's something special about the technology of this type of equipment, whether you're talking about typewriters or cash registers that operate mechanically. Those parts are just so intricate that made those things work. It's similar to looking into a clock mechanism or a pocket watch. Just how many things have to work just right in order for this to be something useful. And so, on the cusp of new technology like this, where you're seeing machinery and equipment just improve the lives of, in this case, a business, office secretary or something like that. It's a really neat thing. This comes, like I said, from 1936, and that was the year that my mother was born. And so I think about this, being a brand new product at the time that she's just, an infant. So that's pretty neat as well. I sold this ad for $18.77. Here's a nice, colorful, full-page ad from 1940 that ran in Saturday Evening Post. The advertiser here is Kellogg's Corn Flakes, and this fellow in the ad says, "Breakfast was just a bore to me till my wife got this big idea, switch to something you'll like." And it shows a bowl of cereal there that looks like it's got big fat blackberries in it, which is something that I love. And I sold this ad for $16.77. On the screen right now, you're looking at a yellow truck and coach ad of Pontiac, Michigan. This comes from 1937, and until I saw this ad, I had never seen one of these before. I'd never heard of a yellow truck before. Again, not talking about the color of the vehicle, we're talking about the name of the company, but I had never heard of a yellow truck until I saw this ad. This is the only one I've seen. I didn't go looking. I didn't search to see if there's other ads for this company out there, but I knew because it was kind of obscure that it might bring a good price, and so I went ahead and added a pretty good premium to the base price of this ad. The base price would be $12.77. I priced this at $23.77. What you're looking at here is pretty much a delivery van. This would be used for city route or a route around town. And it's talking about bread in the ad, but it would be suitable for bread or milk and eggs, or some kind of produce or whatever that you're moving from warehouse wholesaler to retailer. And so it's just a fun ad to see, and I sold it for $23.77. And this is my last sale of the week. As I wrap up, let's go ahead and look at some weekly sales numbers. In recent videos, I've been talking about my test of eBay's free shipping policy and what the algorithm response and the customer response would be to change my store policy to free shipping. And we're getting a look at that in recent videos. It's been ongoing for a few weeks. I've got just a few weeks left of this test period. I remember replying to a comment on one of these videos, and I said, I don't want to do more work for less profit. I don't even want to do more work for the same profit. What happened here, July the 29th to August the 4th, you can see I had 25 sales and grossed $388, but I netted only $77. By comparison, the period of August the 5th to August the 11th that we've just looked at, I sold 10 fewer ads, grossed only $273, but my net profits went up by 39%. The explanation for that is it cost me more to pack and mail 25 ads, so my selling costs were higher, and also my average sales price per ad was significantly lower during that earlier week. It was lower by $2.75 per item. And so that produced some interesting numbers for us to look at here. I feel like the process of this analysis is kind of fascinating to me. I hope it's interesting to you, and I hope you'll subscribe to the channel, because we'll be taking a look at more of these numbers over the next few weeks, and sort of a wrap up at the end of this test that I hope you find interesting and informative. Well, that's all I have for you this week. I appreciate you watching. Bye for now.